believe she's actually crying.
Look at her, she's actually gonna cry. I know, it's pathetic.
The laughter echoed down the corridor long after she'd dropped her books. Glass lenses skittered across the tiled floor. One cracked, one gone entirely. Maya Jefferson crouched, fumbling in the glare of fluorescent light, the laughter swelling. Sharp, high, cruel. The physics lab door swung open and the headmaster's voice cut through the noise. "What's happening here?" Silence, and then a smirk. "Nothing, sir," said Brandon Hayes, the golden boy. Varsity jacket unzipped just enough to reveal the gleam of his father's badge on a lanyard around his neck. She just tripped. Maya froze, her palms slick. She wanted to speak, to say she'd been shoved, that the formula on her notebook had been snatched and crumpled, but the words lodged in her throat. The headmaster's gaze skimmed over her, paused at the broken glasses, then slid away. "Be careful next time, Miss Jefferson." That was it, a dismissal. A sentence that buried the moment under institutional quiet. Brandon's voice followed her as she stood, low enough for only her to hear. "Smart doesn't save you here." The hallway smelled of disinfectant and humiliation. Maya clutched her half-broken glasses, her vision split. One lens clear, one fractured. Through that fracture, Brandon blurred into a smear of white and blue. She didn't cry. She just looked up at the school's crest etched into the wall, Veritas et Virtus, and felt something calcify inside her chest. Years later, that same crest would hang behind her at a global science symposium. But tonight, all she could see was the crack in the glass, and how perfectly it matched the crack in her faith. Rain had already soaked through the hem of Maya Jefferson's uniform skirt by the time she reached the school gates. It was the kind of rain that blurred everything, signs, faces, even the lines between humiliation and habit. She pulled her hood tighter, balancing her project board under one arm and the cracked glasses on her nose. Inside, the hallway smelled of bleach and cold metal. Posters for the annual science fair lined the walls, glossy photos of smiling white faces beneath slogans like "Innovation for a Better Future." Her name wasn't among them, though she'd won 2 consecutive regional contests. "Yo, Einstein," Brandon Hayes called from near the lockers, his voice cutting through the low hum of chatter. "Forgot your calculator? Or did you finally run out of answers?" Laughter followed, low and rehearsed. Maya kept walking. "Hey, I'm talking to you," he said, stepping in front of her. "You hear me, or are those busted glasses blocking sound too?" "I hear you fine," she said. "I'm just not interested." "Not interested," Brandon repeated, turning to his friends. "You hear that, boys? She's too smart for us now." One of them muttered something about her hair. Another snatched the edge of her project board. The glue hadn't fully dried. When he jerked it away, 2 solar cell panels peeled off, landing in a puddle of water near the lockers. "Careful," she shouted, instinct breaking through restraint. Brandon's grin widened. "Oh no, you broke your little science thing." Her breath came shallow. "It's not broken, but it was." The thin wires she'd soldered herself hung loose. A small river of solder streaked across the cardboard. Then came the voice, the one that made everyone freeze. "Mr. Hayes." Headmaster Wilcox stood at the end of the hall, umbrella still dripping, his expression mild but distant. "Is there a problem here?" Brandon straightened. "No, sir." Maya just dropped her board. Maya opened her mouth. The truth pressed at her tongue like a physical weight. But Wilcox's eyes had already slid over her and onto the clock behind her head. "Then clean it up and get to class," he said. "Science fair starts in 10. He walked off, leaving behind the faint smell of wet wool and authority. In the lab, Maya worked in silence, reassembling what she could. The fluorescent lights buzzed, reflecting against the cracked lens of her glasses. She held the solar cells steady, taping over the damage. Her partner, a quiet girl named Leah, whispered, "You should tell someone." "I did. Last time, and they said to ignore it," Leah hesitated. "You know, they're just... Don't." Maya's voice was sharper than she meant. "Don't say jealous. They're not jealous. Leah, they're protected." The intercom clicked. "Science fair participants, please report to the auditorium." Rows of display tables filled the gym, bright banners hanging overhead. Parents and faculty clustered near the front, where Brandon's group stood around a gleaming drone prototype. His father, a police captain, was laughing with the superintendent. Maya carried her project, patched, dripping fragile, to the back row. When the judges approached, she launched into her explanation. This design uses layered solar membranes to generate. One judge raised a hand. We can't read your data sheet. It's smeared. It got wet. Perhaps you should have been more careful. Her throat tightened. The results are in the digital log if... The judge had already turned to the next table. Behind her, Brandon's voice carried, loud and effortless. Our drone uses adaptive GPS, real next-gen stuff. The judges laughed, charmed. Cameras flashed. Maya stood alone beside her limp project. The tape peeled back in slow, humiliating silence. That evening, she found herself in the library, long after the janitors had finished their rounds. Rain tapped the windows in erratic bursts. The trophy case near the door glimmered with the faces of smiling alumni, lawyers, senators, soldiers, none who looked like her. She stared at the crack in her glasses, tracing it with her fingertip. When the door creaked, she didn't turn. She knew the voice. You still here? Brandon leaned against the doorway. Fair's over. Thought you'd be home crying by now. Go away. Ah, come on. Don't be like that. His tone shifted. Lower, dangerous in its casualness. You think any of this matters? Nobody remembers who wins. People remember who fits, Maya turned slowly. You mean who fits your world? He smiled. Exactly. Something in her, brittle and long-tensed, gave way. One day, Brandon, you'll study what I build. And you'll hate that you have to. He chuckled, but there was hesitation now. Big talk for someone with tape on her project. She gathered her books. Tape holds things together. Lies fall apart. Outside, the rain had stopped. Streetlights bled orange across the wet pavement. She walked home in silence, her shoes squelching with every step. The notebook under her arm, the one that held her original blueprints, felt heavier than anything she'd ever carried. When she reached the bus stop, she looked back once. Through the glass doors of the school, she could still see the reflection of the hallway crest. Veritas et virtus. Truth and virtue. Her cracked lens split the Latin words in half. She whispered to herself, almost a vow. I'm done waiting for truth from them. A car passed, spraying water onto the curb, but she didn't move. The lights of the city stretched ahead like a distant constellation. Unreachable, yet real. For the first time that day, she smiled. Not from joy, but from clarity. Tomorrow she would apply for the scholarship she'd been too afraid to try for. Tomorrow she would stop shrinking to fit, and one day, not far off, the world that ignored her would need her. Equations more than she'd ever needed their permission. The apartment smelled faintly of disinfectant and overworked coffee. Maya sat at the kitchen table, laptop open. Scholarship application glowing against the flickering ceiling bulb. Her mother, Denise Jefferson, entered quietly. Hospital scrub still on. Exhaustion stitched into every line of her face. She poured herself the last inch of coffee from a chipped mug that read, World's Best Nurse, and leaned against the counter. You're up early, she said. Didn't sleep. Denise nodded toward the screen. That for school? Scholarship. Out of state. Her mother's eyebrows rose. Out of state? Maya hesitated. There's a university in Boston with a renewable energy program. Dr. Patel, I read his paper last semester. They take undergrads for research. Denise rubbed her temples. Boston's far. Rent's high. Winters are worse. I can handle it. I know you can handle it, Denise said softly, sitting down across from her. I'm asking if you can afford it. I'll get funding. If not, I'll work. Maybe tutoring. Silence stretched between them, filled with the low hum of the refrigerator and the faint static from the radio left on near the window. Then Denise said, They hurt you again, didn't they? Maya didn't answer. Her eyes stayed fixed on the cursor blinking in the personal statement box. I saw your glasses, Denise continued. You patched them with tape. It's fine. It's not fine, Denise said, voice cracking. Every time you come home smaller. I didn't raise you to fold. I'm not folding. I'm leaving. The words hung in the air like a verdict. Later that morning, Maya walked to the bus stop. The city waking slow around her. Shop shutters lifting, vendors setting up. Street sweepers pushing yesterday's debris into gutters. The scholarship form printed neatly in her folder felt like both weapon and shield. On the bus, she sat near the window, headphones in, but no music playing. Her reflection stared back, tired, determined. A boy from her chemistry class sat 2 rows back, whispering to another student. She caught her name, caught the word angry. She smiled without turning around. They could name her however they liked. Soon she'd be somewhere they couldn't pronounce her name at all. That night, Denise came home early. She placed an envelope on the table, light blue worn at the edges. "What's this?" Maya asked. "Your grandmother's savings bond," Denise said. "She meant it for your college." "Mom, I can't." "You can." "You will." Denise's voice steadied. "You don't owe this city your suffering. You owe yourself freedom." Maya stared at the envelope. "What if I fail?" Denise laughed, weary, proud. "You already survived worse than failure." For the first time, Maya let herself believe it. 2 weeks later, the email came. Subject line: "Congratulations, Maya Jefferson, scholarship awarded." She read it 3 times before she moved. Her hands trembled as she reached for her mother's phone. Denise answered on the 3rd ring. "Mama," Maya whispered. "I got it." On the other end, silence and then a muffled sound that was half laughter, half tears. "Say it again," Denise said. "I got it. Full tuition. Research placement," Denise exhaled slowly. "Then pack your things, baby. You're going to Boston." The day she left, the rain had turned gentle. Less storm, more farewell. She packed everything into 2 suitcases. Clothes, notebooks, her old cracked glasses, and the solar cell prototype she'd salvaged. Denise stood at the door holding a small box wrapped in brown paper. "What's that?" "Your father's watch," Denise said. "He'd want you to have it." Maya paused. "You sure?" Her mother smiled faintly. "You're going to need to keep time for something bigger now." At the bus terminal, they stood in line for longer than either spoke. When the driver called boarding, Denise pulled her daughter close. "I can't protect you from what's out there," she whispered, "but I can remind you who you are." Maya nodded against her shoulder. "I know who I am." "Then don't let them convince you otherwise." The engine rumbled to life. Maya climbed aboard, choosing a seat by the window. Her mother's figure blurred as the bus pulled away, her blue uniform catching the streetlight like a flicker of flame. Maya opened her notebook, the one with her formulas, the same pages they once mocked, and wrote a single line across the margin. "Leaving isn't running. It's beginning." Outside, the city receded, giving way to highway and open fields. The horizon stretched wide and uncertain, but this time the uncertainty didn't scare her. She glanced at her reflection in the window. The crack in her glasses caught the passing light, splitting it into a faint spectrum of colors. It looked somehow like hope refracted. The lecture hall smelled faintly of old books and ambition. Rows of students tapped at keyboards as Dr. Sloan scribbled equations across the whiteboard, his voice steady and clipped. "Remember, science isn't just discovery," he said. "It's credibility." Maya sat near the back, notebook open, pencil moving fast. Credibility. The word lodged somewhere between her ribs. She'd earned her scholarship, yet even now she felt like she was being tested for permission to belong. When class ended, clusters of students gathered around Dr. Sloan, mostly white, mostly loud. Maya waited until the room emptied before approaching. "Professor," she began quietly, "I was wondering if I could ask about the lab assistant openings." He didn't look up from his notes. "Positions are competitive, mostly for upperclassmen. I know. But my background's in renewable. Try again next semester. Dismissed." Not unkindly, just efficiently. Like bureaucracy disguised as fairness, she gathered her books. Behind her, 2 students whispered, "Who's she?" "The scholarship kid. The one from Atlanta." "Oh, right. Thought she'd sound more Southern," they laughed. Maya left the room without turning, but the sound followed her down the hall. A low, private echo of what she already knew. Some people were born with validation stitched into their tone. 3 weeks later, she was in the lab after hours, recalibrating a solar array model. The hum of fluorescent lights mixed with the soft rhythm of her pencil tapping against the desk. "Still here?" The voice startled her. She turned and saw Dr. Patel, the visiting researcher from India whose work she'd admired since high school. His sleeves were rolled to the elbows, his accent gentle but firm. "Yes, sir," she said. "I'm running a simulation on layered photovoltaic cells." He walked closer, scanning her notes. "This model, you designed it?" "I modified it from Dr. Sloan's parameters." "Modified?" He smiled faintly. "You improved them." Heat rose to her face. "Just a small correction." Patel's expression sharpened. Small corrections move the world forward, Miss Jefferson. Tell me, why aren't you in my research cohort? I wasn't selected, he frowned. Selection lists are often political. I prefer capability. Join us tomorrow at 8 a.m. Just like that? Just like that, he said. Science should not need permission to recognize talent. The next morning, Maya entered Lab 312, a glass-walled space filled with monitors, sensors, and quiet intensity. Graduate students hovered around computer screens. Wires tangled like vines across the floor. Patel gestured her over. We're testing efficiency thresholds on perovskite films. I want you on data analysis. The others looked up briefly, polite smiles that didn't reach their eyes. One girl, Anna, leaned over and whispered to a classmate, "He really brought in an undergrad?" Maya pretended not to hear. Hours passed. Numbers scrolled. The air hummed with quiet rivalry. When Patel returned to check the readings, Maya spoke softly. The reflectance ratio's off. 1 decimal shift could throw your calibration. Anna looked annoyed. We've been using this code for weeks. It's still wrong, Maya said. You're rounding early. Patel leaned in, scanning the terminal. His eyes flicked to Maya, impressed. She's right. The lab went silent. Anna's jaw tightened. Lucky guess. No, Patel said. Good science. After the others left, Patel remained, scribbling equations on the whiteboard. Maya hesitated, then asked, Do you ever get tired of proving yourself? He paused, marker in hand. Every day, he said. But tiredness is not the same as defeat. I feel like I'm walking a tightrope between being invisible and being called arrogant. He turned, studying her expression. That's the paradox they give people like us. They make you choose between humility and existence. She nodded, eyes stinging. Patel lowered his voice. Then don't choose. Build something so precise they can't erase it, even if they try to take credit. The words landed heavy, electric. Weeks blurred into months. Maya's project, a hybrid solar array integrating nanocarbon scaffolds, began showing promise. Patel presented her results at a departmental briefing, introducing her by name. The applause was polite, restrained. Afterward, Dr. Sloan approached. Excellent work, he said, shaking Patel's hand. Then glancing at Maya, Your assistant's data seems solid. She's not my assistant, Patel said. She's the lead. Sloan's smile stiffened. Ah, well, good for you. When he walked away, Patel muttered, Some people mistake acknowledgement for generosity. Maya exhaled slowly. He'll remember this. Let him, Patel said. Memory is a dangerous currency in institutions like this. That night, alone in her dorm, Maya wrote in her journal, the same one she'd carried since high school. Her handwriting steadied as she wrote, I am no longer asking to be seen. I am recording proof that I existed here. A whisper of rain tapped the window, faint, rhythmic. She glanced toward her reflection, the city lights cutting through glass like fractured constellations. Then her phone buzzed, a message from Anna. Congrats on your results. Just so you know, the department's publishing next week. Dr. Sloan's team is taking the perovskite segment. Maya froze. Wait, that's ours. No reply. Just the small gray dots vanishing mid-typing. Her chest tightened. She opened her files, scrolling through the lab data. Hours of her calculations, signatures, timestamps. Every trace of her name could be removed with a single edit. In the corridor outside, she heard footsteps. Laughter echoing down the hall. Then faintly, a voice. Don't worry. She's just an undergrad. She'll disappear. Maya shut her laptop. The whisper turned razor-sharp inside her head. Disappear. No, not this time. Maya didn't sleep. The glow of her laptop painted the walls blue, graphs and code looping endlessly on the screen. She scrolled through every timestamp, every version, every hidden folder. The data hadn't been stolen, not yet. But it was close. Someone had accessed her drive from the faculty server, copying her experimental runs into a new document under Sloan's research ID. Her pulse thudded in her ears. She whispered the words out loud, not to remember them, but to taste their weight. They took it. The next morning, Patel's office smelled of coffee and ozone from the nearby machines. He listened without interrupting, hands clasped beneath his chin. You're certain? He said finally. I checked the metadata. They cloned my data file 3 days ago. He leaned back, thoughtful. They'll publish soon. I know. Patel rose, pacing slowly. If you confront them now, they'll bury you under procedure. You need proof that can't be dismissed. I already have proof. No, he said. You have suspicion. They have reputation. Maya's jaw tightened. Then I'll make the data speak. She returned to the lab that night long after the others had left. Rain lashed against the windows. The fluorescent lights buzzed weakly overhead. She began rerunning her simulations, feeding the same equations through a different compiler, one that logged her process in real time. Every keystroke, every test. The machine hummed, the air thick with static. On the screen, the model began to stabilize. Her model unmistakably distinct from Sloane's draft. At 2:47 a.m., the results loaded. Efficiency, 27.2%. Her signature parameter. She smiled faintly. You can't steal precision. She saved the file under her name, encrypted it, and backed it up to a remote cloud drive under Patel's supervision code. By morning, the campus buzzed. The department's newsletter had just announced, Dr. Sloane's team achieves record-breaking efficiency in perovskite hybrid design. Maya stood frozen in the hallway. The photo of Sloane and his graduate students plastered across the screen. Her design, her equations, flashed in the background, erased of her name. Students congratulated him as they passed. Patel's office door was closed. She tried to call. No answer. Anna spotted her from across the atrium. Hey, don't look so upset. It's not personal. Not personal. Anna shrugged. Welcome to academia. It's about who gets there first. I was first. Anna hesitated, then lowered her voice. You're smart, Maya. Just don't make noise about it. You'll ruin your chances here. Then maybe the system deserves to be ruined. Hours later, Patel found her in the lab. I saw the newsletter. She looked up. They erased me. I know, he closed the door. You're not powerless. I've seen your live logs, timestamps, calibration proofs. We can bring this to the ethics board. Maya's voice trembled. They'll protect him. Maybe, but data doesn't lie. He placed a flash drive on the table. Everything you need is here. But be careful. Once you start, you can't go back. She stared at it. Why are you helping me? Patel smiled faintly. Because when I was your age, they erased my name too. The ethics hearing convened 2 weeks later in a narrow conference room lined with plaques and silence. Sloane sat at one end of the table, calm, polished. Maya sat across from him, hands clasped tightly, Patel at her side. Dean Whitmore adjusted his glasses. Miss Jefferson, you're alleging intellectual theft of unpublished data? Yes. Do you have proof? Maya slid the flash drive forward. Timestamps, code signatures, simulation records. The system tracks keystrokes, mine show creation. Theirs show duplication. Sloane's smile didn't falter. Academic data is often shared within teams. She may have misunderstood protocol. Patel's voice cut in. Protocol does not explain data cloned before her access was revoked. Whitmore frowned, scrolling through the logs. Dr. Sloane, this is serious. These files are identical down to checksum hashes. Sloane's expression cracked. Just slightly. Then perhaps there was a syncing error. No, Maya said. There was intent. The room went still. When the hearing adjourned, she walked out into the corridor, body shaking. Patel followed quietly. They'll review it, he said. It'll take weeks, but the truth is on record now. Maya stopped at the window, watching rain streak down the glass. The truth was always on record. They just never read it, Patel nodded. Now they will. That night, she sat by the campus lake, laptop open. Her email pinged. A message from an independent science journalist she'd contacted weeks ago in desperation. We've reviewed your files. This is big. If you're willing to speak on record, I'll publish. She stared at the message, heart hammering. Patel's words echoed in her head. Once you start, you can't go back. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. Then she typed, yes, publish everything. She hit send. The wind off the water was cold, but it carried something new, not comfort, but clarity. She looked at the reflection of the lab building shimmering across the surface and whispered, almost to herself, they said credibility was everything. Let's see how credible they sound tomorrow. By sunrise, the story had detonated. The university homepage crashed before breakfast. Students clustered around phones and tablets. Headlines flashing across feeds like sparks. Black undergraduates' research stolen by renowned physicist. Sloan scandal. Whose data built the discovery? Whistleblower from Atlanta exposes academic bias. Maya watched the chaos from her dorm window. The air felt dense, electric. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed, blending with the low hum of voices rising across campus. Her phone buzzed nonstop. Reporters, classmates, even old acquaintances from high school. Everyone wanted a statement. Patel called first. "You started a storm," he said. "I didn't start it," Maya replied. "I just stopped cleaning it up." By noon, the university issued an official statement. "We are aware of allegations regarding research attribution. The administration is committed to a fair and transparent review." Students read it aloud in the cafeteria. Laughter laced with disbelief. Fair, transparent, words worn thin by misuse. Anna approached Maya hesitantly. "I didn't think it would blow up like this," she said. "You sent them my data," Maya answered quietly. "I didn't mean—" "You did," Maya cut in. "You meant to be safe. You meant to stay close to power." Anna's eyes glistened. "I just wanted to finish the project." "So did I." Maya turned away, leaving her with silence. At 3 p.m., she was summoned to the dean's office. The hallway leading there was lined with portraits, all pale faces in oil and frame, watching her pass as if history itself were evaluating her audacity. Inside, Dean Whitmore sat flanked by 2 administrators. Sloan occupied the far chair, still immaculate, his calm a carefully practiced performance. "Maya," Whitmore began, tone syrup smooth, "this situation has escalated. We're concerned about the media attention." "Then maybe you should have been concerned about the theft," she said. One administrator frowned. "We're not confirming that word, Miss Jefferson. At least not publicly." "So you're protecting him?" "We're protecting the institution," Whitmore said gently. "This affects grants, partnerships." Patel's voice broke in from behind her. He'd entered quietly. "And integrity. Or have we retired that word?" Whitmore sighed. "Dr. Patel, please—" "No," Maya said, stepping forward. "He's right. You're all worried about headlines, but the headline is the truth." Sloan finally spoke, voice smooth as glass. "Miss Jefferson, you've made a serious accusation without understanding the consequences. Careers will end." "They should," she said, his eyes hardened. "Do you have any idea how much damage you've caused?" Maya leaned closer, her tone measured. "Only the kind that exposes rot." That evening the journalist called. "You're live in 1 hour," she said. "National segment. Are you ready to speak?" Maya stared at the reflection of herself on the darkened laptop screen. Calm, focused, the crack in her glasses catching the lamplight like a scar of memory. "I've been ready for years," she said. The interview studio was minimalist. 2 chairs, a ring light, and the sharp scent of nerves and makeup. The host, a composed woman in her 40s, greeted her warmly. "You've started a national conversation," she said. "How do you feel?" "Tired," Maya answered. "Not from speaking, but from years of being told silence was survival." The host nodded. "You believe your data was taken because of bias." "I believe it was taken because bias makes theft look like mentorship." A murmur rippled through the crew. The host hesitated, then asked, "What do you want from the university now?" "Not apology," Maya said. "Accountability. Because if data can be stolen in daylight, then science becomes theater." When the segment aired that night, it spread faster than wildfire. Hashtags trended, faculty inboxes flooded, alumni donors demanded answers. The next morning, protest signs filled the campus lawns. "Cite Black women." "Data has a color. Truth is not a privilege." Sloan's composure began to crack. Reporters hounded him, leaving the faculty building. Cameras caught the moment he snapped, "I didn't steal anything," before slamming the car door. The footage went viral within hours. Patel visited Maya's dorm later that evening. "He's suspended," he said quietly. "Pending full investigation." She sat motionless for a long moment. "So it's real," Patel nodded. "Yes, but understand, justice here is not triumph. It's exposure. I don't want revenge, I know. You just wanted truth to have sound again." Days passed. The world moved, but slowly, as if adjusting to her existence. Emails arrived from students across the country, young scientists who'd faced similar erasures. Some angry, some grateful. One message from an anonymous faculty member read, "You've made enemies. but also witnesses. Don't stop now. She printed it and pinned it to her wall. At night, she met Patel by the lab window. The rain outside looked softer now, the city lights trembling on the wet glass. You changed the conversation, Patel said. No, Maya replied. I reminded it what was missing. He smiled faintly. So what will you do next? She turned toward the whiteboard. Her equation still there, untouched, proof that precision could outlast deceit. I'll finish what I started, she said. Not for them. For the ones coming after. The next morning, a campus newspaper headline caught her eye. Jefferson's breakthrough to be re-evaluated by independent committee. She read it twice. The world was beginning to shift. Not fast enough, not fairly, but visibly. As she left the library, a freshman stopped her in the hall. Hey, the girl said, nervous. I'm starting in renewable sciences. I saw your interview, Maya smiled. Then make sure they remember your name. The girl nodded, eyes bright. We will. That night, alone in her dorm, Maya closed her laptop and looked out at the rain again. She whispered almost to herself. They said credibility was everything. Then, after a pause, now I have both. The symposium was supposed to be Sloane's redemption arc. 2 weeks after his suspension, the university announced the annual Global Physics Advancement Conference, a grand event to restore its reputation. Panels, press, and a diversity and innovation segment hastily added to the program, all meant to signal reform without real repair. Maya received the invitation 2 days before the event. It wasn't a request, it was a summons. To demonstrate institutional transparency, the email read, We welcome your presence on the Academic Integrity Panel. Patel advised caution. They'll try to turn this into optics. Make you the proof of progress. I know, Maya said, eyes steady. That's why I'm going. The ballroom shimmered under white chandeliers. Rows of journalists lined the back, cameras angled toward the stage where 5 panelists sat behind nameplates, Dr. Patel to her left. Dean Whitmore at center, Sloane, reinstated pending review. 2 seats down, immaculate as ever, a faint smirk tugging at his mouth, the moderator began, voice smooth and neutral. Today we discuss integrity, authorship, and the future of research collaboration. Maya felt her pulse in her throat. She caught Sloane's reflection in the glass podium, composed, charming. Every inch the wounded intellectual seeking forgiveness. Dr. Sloane, the moderator said, how has this experience affected your approach to mentorship? He smiled faintly. It's reminded me of the fragility of trust. Miscommunication can distort intent. I remain proud of the students who contribute to our work. Maya's jaw tightened. Miscommunication. The word hung like a blade, disguised as silk. Patel leaned slightly toward her. Don't let him control the narrative, he whispered. Her fingers traced the rim of the microphone. I won't. When her turn came, the moderator offered a polite smile. Miss Jefferson, as the whistleblower, you've drawn global attention. What have you learned? Maya took a slow breath. That silence is the first skill institutions teach you. Not equations, not ethics. Silence. A ripple of murmurs spread through the audience. Cameras adjusted their lenses. She continued, voice steady. They'll tell you to be patient, to wait for the process, but the process is designed to wait for you to give up. Whitmore shifted uneasily. Miss Jefferson, we understand your frustration. No, she said, cutting through him. You understand your liability. Gasps scattered across the hall. Sloane's smile faltered for the first time. She turned toward him, every word precise. You said I misunderstood your intent. Let's correct that. When you took my raw data, erased my initials, and presented it as your own, that wasn't confusion. It was erasure. Sloane exhaled slowly, mask slipping. You don't grasp the collaborative nature of science. Collaboration doesn't mean rewriting authorship to fit your comfort zone. Her voice rose slightly. You wanted my discovery without my existence attached. You wanted my mind, not my face. The room went still. The moderator hesitated, caught between protocol and spectacle. Let's remain civil, Patel interjected, firm. Civility is often the last defense of the guilty. Applause burst from the back rows, hesitant at first, then swelling into a wave. Sloane's jaw flexed. This is absurd. The data had institutional ownership. And yet, Maya said, pulling a folder from her bag, you submitted a grant using my draft notes and my unique algorithm signature, time-stamped, authenticated. Independent review verified it last week. Whitmore's face drained of color. Impossible, Sloane whispered. Maya placed the document on the table between them. The data doesn't lie. Remember? The moderator glanced offstage, uncertain. Reporters leaned forward. Flashbulbs flared. Whitmore finally spoke, voice trembling with restrained panic. We'll have to pause this session. No, Patel said sharply. Let it continue. The world is already watching. The dean froze, caught. Sloane pushed back his chair, voice sharp now, stripped of civility. This is a witch hunt. She manipulated everything for attention. Maya stood. Attention? You mean acknowledgement. The thing you've never had to ask for. He sneered. You think one viral clip makes you a scientist? I was a scientist before your signature was on my paper. The audience erupted, some clapping, others whispering, some simply stunned. Within hours, the confrontation flooded social media. Clips replayed across news cycles. Hashtags multiplied. The data doesn't lie. Maya Jefferson, Sloane exposed. Even mainstream outlets that once called her the alleged student now used her name without hesitation. That night, a leaked email surfaced. Correspondence between Sloane and a corporate donor, bragging about streamlining ownership of minority-led research for institutional continuity. The university board convened an emergency meeting. Sloane was placed on indefinite leave. In her dorm, Maya watched the updates scroll across her screen. No elation, just quiet inevitability. Patel knocked and entered without waiting. It's over, he said softly. He's done, she nodded. No, it's beginning. He tilted his head. Meaning? They'll replace him. They'll publish apologies. But systems don't fall from headlines. They rot slowly, then rebuild in the same shape. He smiled faintly. Then keep reshaping it. Maya turned toward the window. Outside, the campus looked unchanged. Ivy walls, neat pathways, the illusion of order. But something invisible had shifted. The unspoken hierarchy cracked, and the air carried its echo. 2 days later, the symposium committee sent her a final email. The board acknowledges your contribution to restoring academic integrity. You are invited to present your independent research at next year's conference. Maya read it, expression unreadable. She clicked delete, then she opened a new document, title line blank. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard before typing, Authorship and Absence, a study of systemic attribution bias in STEM. She smiled faintly. Let's start again, she whispered. That night, a new email arrived from a European research institute. We saw your panel. We'd like to fund your next project, under your name alone. For the first time in months, Maya allowed herself to breathe fully. She whispered into the stillness. They'll study me next time. Then she looked at the cracked glasses on her desk, the same pair from that cafeteria long ago, and placed them gently into a small wooden box, a relic. A reminder. The storm had passed, but the world would keep hearing the thunder. The university campus looked the same. Ivy on red brick, students rushing across courtyards, but the air held a strange quiet, as if the place itself was waiting to exhale. 2 months had passed since the symposium. The scandal had burned through headlines, consumed comment sections, and left behind the faint ash of public fatigue. Sloane had resigned for personal reasons. Whitmore retired early, citing health. The administration promised reform committees and diversity audits that everyone knew would move like glaciers. Maya stayed. She worked in the same lab, same benches, same hum of fluorescent lights, but something inside her had shifted. Every sound now carried a double meaning. The click of a pipette, the faint buzz of the centrifuge, the echoes of her own persistence. Students who once avoided her now nodded in the hallway. Some whispered thank you as she passed. Others avoided eye contact altogether, afraid of being seen picking sides in a war they claimed never to have noticed. Dr. Patel entered the lab carrying 2 coffees. Still here past 9, he said. Maya glanced up from her notebook. Old habits, he handed her a cup. You don't have to keep proving you belong. I'm not proving, she said quietly. I'm rebuilding. Patel leaned against the counter. They finally approved your proposal for the independent lab. You'll have your own grant by spring. Maya exhaled slowly, the news hitting her with muted relief. That's good, he studied her face. You don't look happy. I am, she said. Just tired, Patel nodded. That's the price of forcing institutions to look at themselves. Then I guess I'll keep sending invoices, she murmured. The following week, the physics department hosted a memorial lecture, not for Sloan, but for academic accountability. It was a tidy phrase polished enough to appear progressive. Maya sat at the back unnoticed. The speaker, a young professor from another university, referenced her case indirectly, calling it a reminder that silence is complicity. Applause followed, polite and brief. Afterward, as the crowd dispersed, an older professor approached her. His tone was awkward, his hands fidgeting with a brochure. I just wanted to say, he began, what happened to you was unfortunate. But you handled it gracefully. Grace wasn't the goal, she said. He blinked. Oh? Truth was. The man nodded stiffly and retreated, uncomfortable with clarity. Later that night, Maya sat by the reflecting pool outside the science building. The water shimmered under the lamplight, disturbed only by a drifting leaf. Her phone buzzed with messages. Requests for interviews, offers to speak at panels, corporate sponsorships. She ignored them all. She opened her notes app instead, scrolling through fragments of thoughts. Silence isn't absence. Data doesn't defend itself. Every system resists its own diagnosis. She paused, then added another line. Vindication is not the same as peace. A week later, she received a letter, physical, on cream paper, no return address. The handwriting was neat, deliberate. I was one of his graduate students years ago. I know what he did. We all did. You said what none of us dared to. Thank you for making it real. Inside was a single folded photograph, a young Sloan standing before a research team, all white faces except one. A woman in the back row, uncredited in every paper. Maya studied the image for a long time. Then she placed it inside her notebook, between pages of equations and observations, a different kind of data. When the news cycle finally moved on, so did life. Students returned to their projects. Faculty meetings resumed. The university's social media accounts posted glossy photos of smiling researchers under captions about equity and excellence. Maya walked through the halls, anonymous again, but this time on her own terms. One afternoon, she found Anna waiting outside the lab. I owe you, Anna said, voice soft. I gave them your file. I didn't think they'd use it against you. They didn't, Maya replied. They exposed themselves. Anna swallowed hard. I'm sorry. I know. Maya adjusted her bag strap. Be better next time. As she walked away, Anna whispered, I will. That evening, Maya visited her childhood home in Atlanta. Her mother met her at the door, eyes warm, proud. I saw the interview, her mother said, and the panel. You stood tall, baby. I almost fell apart, Maya admitted, but you didn't. Her mother smiled. That's what they'll remember. They sat on the porch, the same creaking swing, night air thick with the scent of jasmine and memory. Crickets sang somewhere beyond the fence. Do you regret it? Her mother asked. No, Maya said. I regret that it had to be me. Her mother nodded slowly. It always has to be someone first. Months later, Maya returned to campus for her first lecture as a guest researcher. The auditorium was full, students, faculty, even a few reporters. She stood at the podium, the same spot where she'd once been dismissed as an overreacting student. Her voice was steady. Science, she began, isn't neutral. It's built by people, and people bring their shadows into the lab. She looked at the audience, one young faces hungry for permission to question. The equations will hold, she said, but only if the truth behind them does too. Applause rose, thunderous this time. As she left the stage, she glanced once more at the chalkboard. Her own formula still written in the corner, the one they once tried to erase. It gleamed faintly under the spotlight. Proof that survival could be empirical. That night she walked alone past the reflecting pool again. The water shimmered like glass. She reached into her coat pocket and took out the cracked glasses she'd kept all this time. Then, with a slow motion, she lowered them into the pool. They sank quietly, the ripples spreading outward until the surface stilled. Maya whispered, Let the world study the reflection now. The night swallowed the sound. Somewhere, a new story began. 6 months later, the storm returned. Not from scandal this time, but recognition. The International Science Consortium announced its annual laureates. Among them, Dr. Maya Jefferson, credited for her groundbreaking work on predictive particle models in renewable fusion systems. Her algorithm, once dismissed then stolen, was now revolutionizing global energy research. The email arrived at 4:07 a.m. She read it twice in the dim light of her apartment, unable to tell if the trembling in her hands was disbelief or release. Outside, the city hummed awake. Inside, she sat still, the weight of vindication pressing harder than she expected. By noon, her inbox overflowed. Congratulations, invitations, collaborations. Even Whitmore sent a perfunctory message. We're proud of your perseverance. She deleted it. Patel called moments later. You've changed the field, he said. I just restored the record, Maya replied. He laughed softly. That's exactly how change begins, by rewriting what was erased. She smiled, but the sound didn't reach her eyes. It doesn't feel like victory. That's because victory doesn't erase memory. Later that week, she returned to the university, this time as a keynote speaker. The auditorium was packed, cameras flashing. She wore a white blazer, crisp, steady. No glasses now. She'd had her eyes corrected months ago. The dean introduced her with polished reverence. Dr. Jefferson's work exemplifies the spirit of resilience and innovation that defines our institution. Maya stepped to the podium. The microphone hummed softly. I once stood here as a student, she began, defending my data to the same institution that doubted its source. The room fell silent. She continued, voice calm but sharp. I'm not here to celebrate resilience. Resilience is what you praise when you don't plan to change the system that required it. A rustle of discomfort moved through the crowd. Cameras kept rolling. Every discovery, she said, is built on memory. The memory of who got silenced and who got credit. My discovery didn't come from isolation. It came from resistance, from refusing to let someone else's name replace mine. She paused, scanning the room. Sloane's absence was its own presence. His name never mentioned, yet lingering like static in the air. I didn't fight for recognition, Maya said. I fought for accuracy. Truth deserves its author. When the applause came, it was uneven, part admiration, part discomfort. Exactly what truth sounds like. After the speech, reporters crowded her. One asked, what message do you have for young scientists who face discrimination? Maya answered simply, document everything. Trust your evidence more than their sympathy. Another asked, and for the institutions? She looked straight into the camera. Accountability isn't reform. It's maintenance. Start there. The clip went viral within hours, not with outrage this time, but respect. Think pieces called her the scientist who rewired power. Still, she avoided interviews afterward. She'd said what needed saying. Weeks later, a letter arrived from the European Institute that had supported her. They wanted her to lead a multinational research project. Full funding, full control, full credit. Maya read it, then set it down beside a small box, the same one holding her old glasses. She opened the lid briefly, tracing the cracked lens with her fingertip, a relic of everything she'd survived. She moved to Geneva that spring. The lab there was pristine, all glass walls and bright white light. But she still carried her same habits, hand-scribbled equations, color-coded notes, silence before sunrise. Her new team called her Dr. J, their tone half awe, half affection. One evening, as they gathered around the console, a young intern, a quiet girl from Nairobi, asked, Dr. Jefferson, did you ever think about quitting? Maya smiled faintly. Every day. But you didn't know, she said. Because I wanted the next girl who looks like me to start from where I ended, not where I began. Months later, she received a message from an American news outlet, Sloane convicted of academic fraud and grant misappropriation. Sentence, 2 years suspension, permanent loss of tenure eligibility. She read it once, then closed the email. No satisfaction, no bitterness, just symmetry. That night, she stood outside her apartment balcony, Geneva's lights flickering below. The air was cold, thin, alive. She whispered, reversal complete. But she didn't mean justice. She meant history finally turning its gaze toward the right direction. When the first international conference under her leadership convened, journalists filled the hall. A banner stretched across the stage. Authorship, equity, truth. Maya stood at the center, watching her team prepare their presentations. Patel had flown in for the event, older now but proud. "You did it," he said quietly. She shook her head. "We're just starting to." He smiled. "Still humble, still calculating," she replied. During the keynote, she introduced the next generation of researchers, women, men, students of color, each presenting breakthroughs under their own names. Every title slide began with acknowledgement, lead researcher, verified by original author. As the lights dimmed, she stood in the back row, hands clasped, listening to their voices fill the hall. No one mentioned Sloan. No one needed to. The silence of his absence was its own verdict. That night, alone in her apartment, she opened her journal for the first time in months. They said credibility was everything. But credibility without justice is performance. Today, credibility finally learned its name. She looked out the window, the reflection of the city rippling in the glass. Her story, once one of humiliation, had become curriculum, case study, and movement. But she didn't think of legacy. She thought of balance. For every injustice uncovered, a truth restored. For every silence enforced, a voice reclaimed. She closed the journal and turned off the light. The past had been recorded. The reversal was done. Now came the future, authored correctly. 3 years later, the lecture hall bore her name. The Maya Jefferson Center for Ethical Research stood at the heart of the new International Science Campus. Glass, steel, and light, designed around the idea of transparency. Every lab wall was half glass, every research record publicly archived. The architecture itself was a rebuke to secrecy. Students called it the Truth Tower. Maya never requested the name. The board had voted unanimously after her energy algorithm became the foundation for a new fusion model that cut global carbon output projections in half. But she always entered through the side door, like a guest in her own monument. The morning ceremony was modest. Dignitaries, cameras, students in white coats. A brass plaque gleamed beneath the sunlight. Maya Jefferson, scientist, advocate, rebuilder of standards. Truth deserves its author. She stood before it, her reflection glinting in the metal, and thought, names last longer than apologies. After the ceremony, she led a seminar for first-year researchers. The room buzzed with anticipation. Dozens of eyes, bright, nervous, curious, and fixed on her. She began without introduction. "Your degrees will give you access," she said. "Your work will give you voice. But your ethics will decide whether anyone should listen." Silence. Then a hand rose from the back, a young man, soft-spoken. "What if we're afraid of speaking up?" he asked. "What if it costs everything?" Maya nodded slowly. "It will," she said. "But the silence costs more." The answer hung in the air like truth disguised as instruction. After class, she sat alone in her office. On the wall hung a framed photo, her first research team in Geneva, smiling under bright lab lights. Patel stood beside her, arms folded, eyes proud. She'd last seen him 6 months earlier, just before his retirement. His final words still echoed. "You turned survival into syllabus." Now she looked at the empty chair across from her desk, as if he might still walk in. "You taught me to calculate justice," she murmured. That evening she received a package. No sender inside, written in a small notebook, worn leather, pages yellowed. A note tucked inside read, "Found this in the university archive during the clean-out. Thought you'd want it." It was her old lab journal, the one Sloan had taken, erased and replaced. The missing pages had been restored, her handwriting faint but legible. Maya traced the ink, feeling the tremor of memory. She flipped to the last entry, written in her 20-year-old hand. "If truth has to hide, maybe I'll build a lab that doesn't." She closed the book, exhaling softly. "You did," she whispered. Weeks later, a documentary premiered, The Equation They Tried to Erase. It chronicled her journey, the scandal, the symposium, and the shift that followed. She avoided most of the press but agreed to one interview, filmed in the same cafeteria where it had all begun. The interviewer asked, "When did you realize you'd won?" Maya smiled faintly. When I stopped needing to, the interviewer leaned forward. And what do you think your legacy will be? She paused. That someone else's story won't start like mine. Back at her apartment, she replayed the documentary once. When the screen cut to her younger self, that trembling student with cracked glasses, she didn't feel pity. Just continuity. The line between then and now was straight, unbroken. The world had learned her name, but she hadn't built it for fame. She built it for record, for permanence. Months passed. Seasons turned. The center flourished. Grants multiplied, students published, and her algorithm powered entire regions. But she kept teaching, always starting each semester with the same rule. Every discovery begins with a witness. One afternoon, she found a letter left on her desk written in careful handwriting. Dear Dr. Jefferson, I'm the first in my family to study science. When I feel small, I think of your story. It reminds me that data has a heartbeat, and that mine matters. Kiara, age 19. Maya folded the letter gently, placing it beside her old journal. Legacy wasn't in awards or buildings. It was in replication, not of results, but of courage. Years later, during a panel in New York, a reporter mentioned Sloan again. He's reportedly living abroad, the reporter said. Any comment? Maya thought for a moment. Everyone builds something, she said finally. Some build walls. Some build windows. And you? She looked out at the audience, her voice quiet but resonant. I built glass. That night, back in Geneva, she walked through the empty halls of her center. The glass walls reflected her from every angle, not as multiplicity but as evidence. Proof that transparency could hold weight. She reached the atrium where the plaque caught moonlight. Her reflection shimmered beside the engraved words. Older now. Calmer but unbroken, she whispered to the air. They teased a black girl for her glasses, then, after a pause, now they read her equations. As she turned to leave, she noticed a young custodian standing nearby, watching her with quiet admiration. You're Dr. Jefferson, right? Yes, he smiled shyly. My daughter's in your ethics course. She says you changed how she sees science, Maya nodded. Then she's already seeing clearly. Outside, the night was crisp, the stars scattered like chalk dust on a blackboard. She tilted her head up, eyes tracing constellations she once studied from the cracked window of her childhood room. The same stars, the same silence, but now they reflected her name. She thought of Patel, of her mother, of the classroom whispers that once defined her limits, and she thought of every girl still sitting behind a microscope, wondering if she belonged. She whispered into the cold air, her voice steady and certain. You do. The wind carried it into the dark. Quiet, but permanent. The legacy was no longer hers alone, it had multiplied.